For me, wine was something that was a story. It was something that you communicate with someone, but you also connect with them about. And so for me, what I chose to focus on within my personal journey and ventures into wine was how to retell a story, how to focus on facts and retell those facts to people who then you hope they have a connection and they have their own epiphany or response from. So I think one of the things that set me apart in my personal attack in wine was I'm not telling people what things taste like. I'm telling them about the history. I'm telling them about the growers. I'm telling them things that are irrefutable, things that are just storytelling, facts. Covell, a wine bar that I co-own in Los Feliz, got attention because we have a no wine list program. We have 150 wines by the glass, but we do not hand people a piece of paper. We don't recommend that they know how to speak 9 languages, which is what you kind of demand that from a customer when you hand them, this primary source document of multiple pages that wine is in multiple languages. We carry wines from 25 different countries. So instead of handing someone a decoder ring and saying, go make a good decision, we instead help them. I think that's one of the reasons why people somehow had this response and have, I'm very humbled by it, but people have recognized me as someone who does something different, and I'm very honored to have that be a fact. So the Sommelier of the Year accolade, it's one of those things that they tell you ahead of time. They tell you in December the year prior. They basically tell you cannot tell anyone. You have to stew on this information that you know is about to come out. And then 3 or 4 months pass, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this article hits. And I didn't really know what was going to happen. I had no inclination. I didn't have any expectations. My life changed basically immediately. So I'm a person who shows up early and leaves late. It's just what I do. I've worked hard since I was 13 years old. But all of a sudden, people were calling and emailing and texting and getting direct routes of communication I didn't personally give them. And I can only imagine it was because they were digging a little deeper because of that. And Food and Wine magazine, they bestowed an amazing honor on me. I'm very humbled by it. But the feeling, even now 2 years removed, there's been 2 different groups of people who have been given the same accolade since. And each time they ask me to recommend some people, and it's a very flattering honor as well. And each time I reach out to the people who do make that list and I let them know, this changes your life, certifiably. You will be called by people that you never knew existed before to help them with decisions in the wine world. You'll get sent around the world on wine trips that you didn't know you loved the wine from that region, or from people whose name you had never heard of prior. All of a sudden you're on their radar. It's a thing that you don't expect, and you only get to then allow it to change your life. So for me, the creative space, the inspiration comes from an ultimate response from a guest, a customer. Customers become friends in this industry. It's kind of unique. And so you never know who you're going to meet. You never know who's going to respond well. You never know who you're going to inspire. You never know who's going to go travel based on a wine that you show them. And for me, that not knowing, that kind of, everything is possible. Anyone's life can be changed from a modicum of words that we use every day. That allows me to, when people are asking questions, when people are expecting answers, when there's a level of understanding that's expected, I can work harder, I can learn more, I can pass the information down. So my personal creativity comes from, I can't lie. I'm on the spot. I've got cameras on me, I've got people with their cell phones, and if I say something wrong, they'll look it up on their iPhone right away. You don't want to be wrong, you don't want to pass misinformation. So for me, the creativity comes from, how am I going to have fun passing those facts on to someone? How am I going to say something in a way that they've never heard it before, that they maybe never forget? Augustine is my second wine bar that I've opened now, and it's a bit more of an elevated experience. It wasn't our original or initial intention, but it became more of a restaurant than what we had modeled Covell after. So Augustine is now a place where people can come to have amazing food. Our chef just moved back from New York. He's incredible. It was something that came together kind of in the weeks before we opened. We had originally thought we would just do, cheese charcuterie, a couple simple food items. at the last minute, we were granted this amazing opportunity to have this great chef make the food that we offer with the wine that we were already planning to offer a much more of a wine and food experience. Before I had ever traveled, I would not have been able to answer the question, does travel matter in building a wine philosophy? Now that I've been around the world, and I've thankfully been to about 8 different producing nations where wine is a big deal, outside of the US that is, I realize the biggest thing that travel does for you is it changes the narrative. It does not make me like wine more or less for the most part. What it does is it changes how I speak about it. So I can be so excited about a wine from, let's say, Portugal, or let's say Spain, or Republic of Georgia, and I can never have traveled there, and I can tell my customers all about it. I can learn the notes of the way it was farmed and the way they do it in the cellar. But when you go there and meet the person and you can't speak their language and you still find some sort of common language, some sort of common understanding, you eat the food, you taste the wine in the cellar, it just changes the way you speak about it. So if you've never met a winemaker, there's only so much you can say about their personality. There's only so much that you can understand about why they do what they do. But when you go and have dinner at their house and you learn why their father or their grandmother or whoever it was planted that vineyard 3 generations ago, it changes your connection to it. And so the traveling for me is an ability to just direct the narrative a little differently. Something that I've noticed, having become a business person, I wasn't always one, I worked for people for a long time. When you're a sommelier, when you're a wine director, it becomes this opportunity to show off. It becomes an opportunity to have your training be put to the forefront. It becomes something that all of a sudden you get known for. And I think what happens, unfortunately, is a lot of wine directors, a lot of sommeliers, they collect this whole, they amass a collection of wine, and they're not necessarily mindful of the business of it. They think, this is descriptive of me, this is how I show people how much I know and how cool of a collection I can make. But at the end of the day, wines need to be sellable. They want to be drunk. They need to be enjoyed. They need to be sold. Business is business. Restaurants have to make money. And I watch a lot of restaurants, unfortunately, close, and you see these huge wine cellars at the end of the day. The main thing I would love for sommeliers and wine directors to understand is you have to be a business person. You can't just buy a bunch of wine and have it sit in a room and become a museum. Now, if you're going for a grand award-winning wine list, that's one thing, but you also have to be really mindful of the business behind it. And then, in the same conversation, there's things that go really well, like the buy the glass movement has become this huge thing. Wine bars, people expect to be able to taste something before they buy it. They expect the rise in the sommelier to be someone who's excited and they want to teach you about new regions. And there's this, there is this great excitement people get from wine. And so the community behind it, the ability to teach someone about something new that they never had heard about before, giving them that aha moment that we have all had in the wine industry that got us to work in wine. Often you ask a sommelier, a wine director, someone who works in wine daily, maybe a manager at a wine store, if you ask them how they got into wine, they'll probably take you back to this one bottle I had or this one experience I had, what we call the aha moment. Our job now has become the ability to facilitate that for someone else. And so I think that's really an amazing thing that's happening. One of the things I find myself saying every year, and I've been saying this for so many years now, at least 10 that I've been working in wine, longer, every year we look forward to the next year thinking, wow, this time next year things are going to be so great. And it's funny that I continue to say that, and they continue to be better every year. But what I'm really ultimately trying to strive to, and what I think is worth the wait, is when I come to that point where I no longer say that. And I think every day I'm getting closer to that. And I have these moments every year where I'm like, wow, I remember saying that last year. And I'm conscious of it, but I mean it. It's from a place of love. It's from a place of excitement. I want life to continue to get better. I love experiencing, but I also want at some point not to want to say that anymore. So for me, what's worth the wait is the day when I no longer say next year will be better.